do that. If you cannot, then the thought processes are running you. That is the mental cause of restlessness. But, going on a little bit further, these mental causes, undisturbed thought processes which are not controlled, lead to a nervous breakdown. Simply the fact that the mental system is not under our control. It has got out of bounds, so to speak, and that leads to phobias and such. You have heard, we all have heard, about phobias of people going up in tall buildings, how they feel something comes over them. Why? Because the thought processes are not controlled, that's all. Others can go up in the tall building, nothing happens to them. Why cannot that person who has the phobia? Simply because they have not control of the thought processes, the mental processes. Likewise, going within subways. There was a lady in Boston, I remember. It took Mrs. Lewis 20 years to get her to go on the subway. Why? I suppose there was that phobia, the thing would fall in on her. But there are millions of people go. Millions of people that use that subway and are not. So these phobias are simply uncontrolled mental processes. There's one little story comes to my mind at this time about uncontrolled mental processes as the cause of restlessness and worry. In college, we had a fraternity initiation. And you know the horseplay that goes on and so forth. And right behind me was a great big, he was 6 feet. So I went up and, well, I knew that the only thing they could do, the worst, was to kill me or something like that. So I went through and had a good time and enjoyed it. But this great big tall fellow came up and began to cry. Weep and cry. Well, they had to kind of on him a little bit. So they cut down the ritual and let him through. This is a fact, a great big 6-footer. But the irony of it is this. It wasn't more than 2 or 3 weeks after that I was over in Chelsea. They had a great Chelsea fire. Perhaps some of you heard of it. And there in the middle of the street, with the uniform of the militia and a big gun parading back and forth, was this fellow, this 6-foot boy. Nothing but a phobia. Uncontrolled mental processes that he couldn't make himself go through with that simple initiation. So, that is the cause, the mental cause of restlessness. Now, the spiritual cause is another thing. What is the spiritual cause of restlessness? It is this: we have broken the spiritual law, that's all. Instead of realizing that we are not only animals, with a body that the animal has, that demands certain nourishment and has to follow certain laws, we've forgotten the spiritual part of us. We have accepted the body as the reality. We have neglected to feed and nourish the spiritual side within us. And as the result, not knowing what we really are, that we are children of the Most High, made in the image of God, we've forgotten that. What's the result? Nervousness, restlessness, and worry. If you know you are God's child, really know it, is there any place for restlessness and worry? No. We've forgotten that. So we've broken the law. We have to rectify that we may know our birthright, oneness with God. And so, in the case of worry, similar to restlessness, what is the cause of worry? Why do we worry? Uncertainty, that's all. Why do you worry? Think it over. Introspect yourself. Because you're uncertain. You're not sure of certain things. And behind that is fear. Fear. Fear of this, that, and a million things. On the physical plane, we're afraid. We're afraid that we're going to have ill health. We're afraid the body will give us trouble. Perhaps we'll be unable to carry on our work, take care of our children. There are a million things. Why? Because of fear. On the mental side, we have fears that our desires will not be fulfilled. Our children will not come out as we want them to come out. On the spiritual side is the worst thing. We're afraid of what's coming after we're through here. We're afraid of death with its uncertainty. But behind the whole worry is fear. Fear of what? This is important. Fear that we will suffer pain. That's the whole thing behind everything. Fear that we will suffer pain in the various states of consciousness, physical, mental, and spiritual. That's the cause of worry. If you had no fear, if fear could not touch you, no one can touch you. Worry will be a thing of the past. Fear is the basic cause of worry. Now, as to the effects of restlessness. The effects of restlessness and worry are simply, as I have said, they prevent the harmonious flow of God's presence within us as the life force. On the physical side, they lay us open to disease. On the mental side, what happens? What does fear and restlessness do to us? It takes away our peace, doesn't it? You don't have any peace when you're restless and worried over this, that, and a million things. And on the spiritual side is the worst thing. It prevents us from knowing and realizing that we are children of God made in His image, and that it is He who is in us doing all things. That's the real